It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
It is the Friday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. I'm Dave Cokin. Teddy Covers is here. Marco DAngelo will be stopping by later in the show as we'll get into a Preakness preview on today's program. Ari Platinum's producing. A little bad news, Chuck Esposito is tied up. He got called into a meeting and is unable to join us live, but we will tell you lots of good stuff happening at Sunset Station this weekend, including the Preakness tomorrow. If you're looking for a great place to watch the race with lots of props available, some cool stuff to maybe win you a bunch of money if you've got a good opinion that works out in the race, Sunset Station, absolutely the place to be. Get there early, have a great meal at one of the Sunset Station restaurants. Maybe roam around the casino, try your hand at games of chance, and then sit down in the sports book and enjoy what'll be some great action. And stick around because you get other sports going on at night as well. All right, Teddy. Warriors are up 2-0. They come from behind, win 114-111. Pretty easy cover for those who bet Portland, and that was the sharp side last night. Blazers and the over getting the money in Game 2.
Yeah, which is not a great result for a lot of books around town. I mean, depending on who they were catering to, but certainly there was a lot of over money in that ballgame, myself included, so I was glad to see Curry's three-pointer. Seth Curry sent the game over the total. But it's bad news for Portland in the sense that they played about as well as they can play, and they still didn't come up with a win. It's good news for Portland in the sense that they competed with Golden State on even turns on their floor, and we've already seen this Warriors team, A, look vulnerable in each of their first two series, B, get taken to the limit a little bit more than people expected. 6 games first round, 6 games second round. They played more games, so they're certainly a little bit more fatigued now at this stage of their postseason run than some might have expected.
And some of that is attributable to what is clearly a lack of depth on the team.
Yeah, though, I mean, Kerr has used his bench much more in this series than he has in the last series. And the bench played great last night.
And they did, yep.
And was probably the difference between them coming from behind. I mean, the third quarter, when they took that 15-point deficit and turned it at one point into a 5-point lead, that was mostly the starters. But the reserves held their own in that game, and certainly down the stretch with the game on the line. Iguodala making the defensive play. And Curry making the offensive plays to win the game. That's what the Warriors do. That's what the championship pedigree that they have means at this time of the year.
Is Iguodala a Hall of Famer?
No.
Said that rather quickly.
Yeah, he's not.
Okay.
He's Robert Horry, in that sense. Robert Horry had an unbelievable number of great plays in the in the postseason, but not known for his regular season dominance. And Iguodala's a very good player. But I wouldn't even – he's not even on my ballot. He's not even on my radar for the Hall of Fame.
Do you think that part of that is that he's kind of become more of a complementary piece with the Warriors? Because in his early days in the NBA, he was a star, but on a team that didn't have as many stars.
Yeah, but he was never a superstar, and the only guys that make the Hall of Fame are superstars. And, I'm going to look up his numbers right now because it's an interesting question, his career numbers. Because I never really considered Iguodala as a Hall of Fame.
I'm just bringing it. I'm not saying that he is myself. I just think it's kind of an interesting question because his playoff resume, it really is something special. And like Robert Horry, he's been a postseason stud, but probably not enough in the regular season over the years to qualify as a Hall of Famer. But conversation piece.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, he never averaged 20 points a game in his career.
Okay.
And if you don't average 20 points a game, you never average 6 rebounds. No, there's 1 year he did. So, but he's been a very good NBA player for a long time, and certainly last night. After the game, Lillard's like, he fouled me, but they're not going to call that on the last play of the game, nor should they. If it's not an egregious foul, you get away with it on the final play of the game, and I agree with that assessment.
So we move to Game 3 and 4, which will be in Portland, and I certainly think it's logical to suggest that Portland's going to win at least one of these 2 games. Can they win both?
Well, first they got to win the first one.
Oh, that's very important.
You know what I mean? If you don't win the first one, you're not winning them both, and you're probably not winning the second one. So the markets seem to expect Portland to, and again, they showed they could play with Golden State in Game 2, and they seem to expect a Blazers victory in Game 3, being that they're laying 2.5 points after being 7.5, 8-point dogs in each of the first two games at Golden State. And we know that the team that's down 0-2 returning home for Game 3 will always get some level of wise guy support and some level of market support.
Which has clearly influenced the line in the game. I mean, there's no question that the line is being influenced by the books knowing that they're going to get a good deal of Portland money based on the 0-2 angles.
Sure. If Portland would have won the game last night in straight-up fashion, not just against the spread, Golden State would be the favorite in this game.
Right.
They'd be laying 1, laying 2. I don't know what the number would be. So there's no question that the wiggle room that the books have in adjusting the numbers from game to game was utilized here in favor of Portland as opposed to being in favor of Golden State.
So as guys who bet these games, the first thought that occurs to me is, well, I think Portland has a really good chance in Game 3, but the value is just completely gone. Which is now the case in a lot of situations where you have a Game 3 with a home team down 2-0 because the books, again, are adjusting, knowing what the market's going to do. And that kind of gets me out of the game.
Yeah, I really, if I do anything in this game, I'd be looking at the Golden State side. From a side perspective, I'd be looking at the Warriors side. And the thought process goes like this. Golden State's better than Portland, and they're getting points.
Yep. Now, is the public going to jump on all over that?
A little bit. I haven't seen ridiculous consensus numbers in favor of the Warriors, but
it's
certainly,
early.
But certainly there's some public support for Golden State. But I don't care what the public likes or doesn't like. I'd rather bet against the bigger line moves based on wise guy money than I would to anything than trying to let's fade the public in the NBA playoffs. That's going to be a long-term profitable strategy. I'd much rather fade a big move that's not injury related than just looking for a big consensus number to bet against.
Speaking of wise guy money, there doesn't seem to be a consensus of it tonight as the Bucks try to go up 2-0 at home against the Toronto Raptors. A lot of zigzag people will be on Toronto in this game. A lot of people who are just looking at the game without factoring in any of the trend stuff are going to look at Milwaukee and say, well, they didn't play their best in Game 1 and still came on and won it. I don't do much in the NBA anyway. This was an easy pass for me because I think the Bucks are going to win Game 2. But I'd be hesitant to lay to me, 6.5 is a lot of points. I can't lay it. So it's an easy sit it out and watch for me. And maybe hope that Toronto does go down 2-0. Because I think, just an opinion, but I think that if the same thing happens in terms of a line adjustment in Game 3, as we're seeing in the Golden State Portland, Toronto will be a big enough favorite in Game 3 so that I'm just going to go ahead and take Milwaukee up 2-0 or not, take Milwaukee on the road. And I have done very little in the NBA this year, but that's a possible look-ahead spot for me.
Well, I mean, the Bucks were the single best point spread team in the NBA in the regular season. Here we are in the postseason, and they're the single best point spread team in the NBA in the postseason. And if you're going to tell me that the markets are viewing Milwaukee as this elite juggernaut, no, they're not. And we talked about earlier in the week. When we had the Junkyard Dog on Wednesday and talking about how there isn't this groundswell of wise guy support for Milwaukee, and the wise guys were betting Toronto for the series, and the Raptors have been there before. The Bucks just played a game where they shot under 40% from the floor. They shot 25% from three-point range. They lost the turnover battle in that contest.
They did everything but lose the game.
Toronto hit 85% of their free throws, and the Bucks won and covered. Milwaukee's got a better game in them than the one we just saw. They have a much better game in them. And what we saw in the fourth quarter, where Milwaukee's defense shut down every single thing Toronto wanted to do, that's a problem for the Raptors. They've been here before. Nick Nurse hasn't been here before. Kyle Lowry had the best fourth quarter of one of the best fourth quarters of his postseason career, and the rest of the team didn't show up.
And they've been here before, but not with good results.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that factors into it. And Milwaukee at this point doesn't seem to care. The big game inexperience, I think that's gone out the window.
That's a hungry team, and I've seen so much silliness. With the proliferation of lots of outlets talking about betting and gambling information, and not necessarily the most educated opinions. I was watching someone say, "Oh my goodness, Brad Stevens is worth 2 points over Mike Budenholzer in every game." No, he isn't. Mike Budenholzer, a Greg Popovich disciple, who left Atlanta after overachieving pretty much every year there, but he left them because they were going into rebuild mode again. And hey, who's not in rebuild mode? The Bucks. I wouldn't sell him short. I give Milwaukee the coaching edge here. With Nick Nurse he had no answers to what the Bucks wanted to do on Wednesday night, and I'm not convinced he's going to have them tonight either.
On the ice, Game 4 tonight at St. Louis. The Blues, back's not up against the wall yet, but they're getting close. They're down 2-1 to San Jose. Pretty big price in the game with the Blues in the minus 140 range. I don't know if I've ever done this before, but I am taking the Blues tonight. And part of the reason is I actually do think they're going to get the calls tonight. It might be subconscious. I don't think by any means it's going to be an intentional display of favoritism on the part of the Stripes. But everybody knows how many breaks San Jose has been catching in these playoffs. Everybody knows that winning goal in Game 3 should not have counted. Clearly an error. I got a feeling St. Louis is going to get some power play opportunities tonight. And the Blues have been so good off a loss for the most part. I think the Blues even up this series at 2 games apiece tonight. I'm surprised the number's as short as it is. And I know that this has been a series where you want to be taking dogs. It hasn't been Bruin, not the Boston, Carolina. But it's such an obvious St. Louis spot, and all of San Jose series go 7 games anyway. Yeah. This is what happens. They get a 1-game lead, and then it goes back to even. And what's interesting is the sharp market does appear now to be coming in a little bit on San Jose. Yeah. But I'm going to be on the square side in this game. They get me. Minus 140, minus 145. I laid 35. And you got the best of the number. Certainly, if you really shop around, you'll find a 36 right now. But the bottom line is, from someone that doesn't bet hockey, this one looks cheap. We'll see how it works out tonight in St. Louis. If the Blues can't win here, I got a feeling they'll be done in Game 5, but we'll have to look at that after Game 4. Meanwhile, time to look at some baseball action. We'll do that with our Friday edition of the MJ Christensen 4 at 4. 1, 2, 3 into the 4. Put the 4s up. Put the 4s up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sportsline's 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
It is graduation time around the Valley. High school, colleges, and as good as a graduation gift can get, I think, is a real nice timepiece for your graduate. And right now at MJ Christensen, some fantastic deals on top quality watches. Rolex, including pre-owned with all the paperwork and all that stuff, so it's, all authenticated, I guess is the right word. Shinola watches. That's my watch of choice. I love my Shinola. Got a great deal on it at MJ Christensen. 50% off Philip Stein watches. And, of course, any other jewelry needs you might have. They will be fulfilled at MJ Christensen. One location that's been, they haven't been in Boca Park since 1939. Obviously, they were someplace else. Boca Park was dirt in 1939. But just think about it. MJ Christensen's been around longer than the very first casino in Las Vegas, which was the El Rancho, which I believe went up in 1941. And MJ Christensen's been around since 1939.
The Golden Gate. Isn't the Golden Gate been around since forever?
Possibly.
Yeah,
maybe I'm thinking of the Strip.
Yeah, the Strip wasn't.
Yes, okay. Las Vegas Boulevard. I should have, put an asterisk on that. The Flamingo went up later in the 40s. So.
Nonetheless, they've been around for a while.
Yeah. 81 years. Continuous business. It's a great company. We hope you'll do business with them. Our games tonight, we'll start with the Cubs and Nationals, and it's probably just a little bit of a window because I don't think Washington's very good. But they've finally gotten their injured players back. I think Trey Turner, I have not checked the lineups, but Trey Turner could be back in action tonight for the Nationals. So some mental lifts for them. Max Scherzer seems to be rounding into Max Scherzer form. Cole Hamels on the mound for the Cubs, who've now lost a couple in a row, finally cooling off a little bit after a tremendous hot streak. The value, long gone in this one, as the number was very reasonable at the Open yesterday. It isn't anymore. It's gone up into the 155 range.